You have probably seen the pitch online. Build a beautiful, modern home for $30,000 and live completely debt-free. But what the aesthetic social media posts do not show is the day your home gets towed off your dream lot because the county just served you an eviction notice. To a municipal planner or a local zoning board, the phrase tiny home means absolutely nothing. There is no universal building code or a legal zoning category for tiny. From the government's perspective, they only care about one physical detail: what the structure is sitting on. That base layer dictates every rule you have to follow. People generally attempt one of three lifestyle paths with these builds: the traveling nomad chasing mobility, the investor building a backyard accessory dwelling unit, or the rural homesteader going entirely off-grid. The exact moment you decide between building on a wheeled trailer or pouring a fixed concrete foundation, you lock in your legal classification. That single choice permanently determines your financing options, your utility costs, and whether you are legally allowed to live in the structure full-time. If you pick the wrong foundation for your specific goal, you risk sinking your entire life savings into a house you are legally barred from inhabiting. Let's start with the classic tiny house on wheels. Built specifically to move, it's constructed directly onto a heavy-duty trailer chassis. Because it sits on wheels, it avoids standard residential building permits. The trade-off is severe. The law classifies it as a recreational vehicle or caravan, not a permanent home. In many jurisdictions, living in an RV full-time is strictly prohibited outside of licensed parks. It also forces compliance with highway standards. To legally tow this down the road without special wide load permits, the house cannot exceed 2.5 meters in width. The alternative is a fixed in-place build. By pouring a concrete slab or installing deep piers, you physically root the house to the earth. This physical attachment legally reclassifies the structure as a permanent dwelling, or an accessory dwelling unit, commonly called an ADU. This designation establishes the legal right to inhabit this space year-round. But permanence triggers heavy regulation. You now have to navigate strict municipal zoning codes, exact property line setbacks, and rules requiring minimum lot widths just to secure a building permit. There is a third option, the skid foundation. By building on long, heavy runners instead of wheels or concrete, you create a semi-permanent structure that bypasses highway width limits and avoids pouring concrete into the ground. However, skids exist in a legal gray area. Because the home is not permanently anchored to the earth, banks hesitate to offer traditional mortgages, and securing standard home insurance becomes incredibly difficult. The foundation you pour, or intentionally avoid pouring, is the mechanism that permanently defines your rights as a property owner. Once you secure the foundation, you have to actually make the box livable. Many buyers are drawn to complete off-grid independence, generating their own power and managing their own waste. This stacked bar chart illustrates the true cost of independence. Severing ties with municipal utilities requires you to effectively build a private utility company, taking on the massive upfront capital expenditure of a heavy-duty solar array, an inverter, and a private septic system. Off-grid systems also come with a recurring maintenance trap. Depending on your load usage, replacing your battery bank every 5 to 15 years is a major expense you have to budget for indefinitely. You might think the cheaper route is buying an inexpensive, undeveloped plot of rural land and tying into the local grid. Raw land requires extensive preparation. Before building, you must pay for soil testing, surface grading, and tearing deep, jagged trenches to run local water and electrical lines from the street directly to your site. Escaping a monthly utility bill requires an upfront capital expenditure that often rivals the purchase price of the tiny home itself. If you choose the mobile route, those strict highway dimensions follow you inside. Road regulations limit a trailer's maximum height to 4.3 meters, severely restricting your vertical design space. Capping the roofline forces physical compromises. You end up with severely reduced ceiling heights in sleeping lofts and rely on steep, compact ladders just to navigate between floors. To make a restricted footprint comfortable, you have to utilize custom, modular, and multifunctional furniture. Custom fold-away beds, compact drop-leaf tables, and hidden storage compartments require complex mechanisms and custom carpentry. These specialized pieces drastically drive up the interior cost per square foot. Fortunately, building codes are adapting. The International Residential Code recently introduced Appendix Q. This model building code provides a legal, safe framework for utilizing compact stairs and reduced loft ceilings in permanent tiny homes that are 400 square feet and under. Reducing the square footage shifts your spending from bulk materials like lumber and drywall into the specialized engineering and custom labor required for such a tight space. This matrix maps out the exact requirements for the 3 distinct paths. A successful build requires matching your specific lifestyle goal to the correct legal framework from day one. The nomad must strictly utilize a wheeled trailer to maintain mobility. To avoid exorbitant off-grid solar costs and stay within the law, this blueprint relies heavily on short-term stays at licensed RV parks with existing utility hookups. The urban ADU builder needs a fixed foundation, like a concrete slab. Because the tiny house sits in a backyard, this blueprint leverages grid-tied electricity and plumbing stepped directly from the primary residence. The primary hurdle for the ADU builder is not utilities, it is navigating hyper-local setback laws and squeezing a structure into tight neighborhood spatial constraints. Finally, the rural homesteader. This blueprint utilizes skid or pier foundations. It absorbs the massive upfront costs of off-grid solar and septic, while operating in rural counties where a semi-permanent foundation avoids triggering strict minimum size laws for primary residences. Building a functional tiny home requires aligning your lifestyle goals with local zoning realities long before the first purchase is ever made.